Welcome everybody today to our Climate Services webinar. We'll just wait a few minutes for everybody to get into the webinar and then we'll commence. All right, we might start going through the preliminary information and let everybody know what's happening. I'd like to acknowledge the country from which we're broadcasting from this today and acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. Any guests and speakers that might come from Indigenous country or in fact be Indigenous. I'm broadcasting from Wiradjuri land, which is in sort of central southern New South Wales. We pay our respects to their elders and particularly pay our respects to emerging leaders. And hopefully they get the support from the community they need. So we'll go on now to explain what we're doing today. We'll be using the webinar mode, which means that we can't see anybody that's participating, but you'll be able to see us. And if you want to put comments in the chat, or more particularly, we have quite a large amount of time set aside for questions. So can you put your questions in the Q&A box on your screens? Now, we might just, before we start, today you'll be hearing from Lynette, Bettio, and where did my other thing go? Kathy Tozer, I believe. Now, Kathy is still having trouble with her computer, so fortunately she's not on for a little while, so hopefully we can get that sorted. But in the meantime, I'm just wondering, does somebody want to give a little bit of a 5-minute outline of what the program is that you're working on before you talk, or are you going to do that in the talk?
We were planning on doing that in the talk,
in the
Peter.
Talk. But no, well, that's fair enough. I'm just sort of trying to wait until everybody gets in before we actually kick it off. And I'd like to see everybody here. But anyway, looks like we're going to not.
Maybe I'll just say how. Sorry, maybe I was just going to say, maybe I'll just say how happy we are to be here. And I've, worked with farmers for climate action over a number of years. So spoken, I think, at one of the more recent conferences pre-COVID in Orange. So, which was a great experience. I was saying how I've lost my favourite Farmers for Climate Action hat. So I'll have to wait till you have a new supply and I can get a new one. But I think this is, for us, this is a really good group that that we want to talk to. This for climate services for agriculture. It's a really, we don't want it to be one of those things that sits on the web. It's a really user-driven service. So, a lot of the work that we're doing is actually reaching out to groups, reaching out to farmers, and just seeing what information you need to make your decisions, whether it's at the seasonal level or whether it's that more long-term level. So with this presentation today, please, ask those questions, but going forward, please really engage. We really want that feedback so we can make this as useful for you as possible.
Okay, well, we might get underway anyway, so I'll introduce you now, Lynn. Kind of a roundabout way of doing things, but anyway, Lynn Bettio is a senior climatologist at the Bureau of Meteorology, has a PhD in climate science. The Climate Services section is responsible for preparation and analysis of Australia's climate record and provides capability for outlooks, predictions and projections. Lynn also works on the Climate Services for Agricultural project and enjoys talking to users of climate information on how the services can best answer their needs. So that's what we're really here to find out, people, today, is if you're not happy with something or you think you could improve it a bit, or maybe have a discussion about how to use it properly, Lynn is the person to go to find that out. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Lynn. Thank you. Not hearing anything, Lynn.
Well, I might actually hand over to my colleague Carly, who I see on the line now too, and she might. Oh, can you hear me now? I'm just going to hand over to my colleague Carly, who's on the line. And she's going to start us off.
Oh, okay. Well, I better do an introduction for Carly just before she gets going.
But I will just say too, there's actually, it's not just me. We've got a whole team of. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. Well, I'll just point out some interesting facts about Carly. She's done some interesting work in the Antarctica. I had a chat with her beforehand, which sounded very exciting, about working in Antarctica, and she's basically working on ocean and atmosphere research in the Southern Ocean. So I won't take up any more time. Over to you, Carly.
Thanks, Peter, and apologies. I've just had some computer dramas, so I'm hoping that I've gone through those dramas and come out the other side. So I'll just share my screen now, hopefully. Now, just get confirmation that people can see.
That's working. Yep.
Brilliant. Okay, so apologies, Peter, I've missed your introduction, so I'm sorry, everybody, if I'm sort of repeating things. But just, yeah, here today with Lynette to present about climate services for agriculture and to take you through some of the features of the platform. So just a quick introduction. So the idea is that we're pulling together climate information, sort of the historical climate, seasonal forecast information, and climate projection information. We're pulling that all together and serving that up on the one website. So you'll only have to go to the one spot to find that information. And we're providing it for user selected locations. So you can sort of plug in your location and pull out the information relevant to that location. I think that's pretty unique. And I guess the idea is that you might be able to use that information to make, I guess, climate related decisions for your farm. The project's been delivered by the CSIRO, the Bureau of Meteorology and FarmLink. And as Peter mentioned, I think I heard at the end there, that a big component of this project is the engagement. This is a sort of a user-centered project. We want your insights and please tell us what you like or what you don't like about the platform, because we want to develop it with you. And this project is funded by the Future Drought Fund. And so it's an Australia-wide project, providing information Australia-wide, but we do have some focus pilot regions, and these are have been a focus for some of the engagement that's been taken, and for things like selection of commodities and development of commodity indices. And our engagement team will be visiting, hopefully COVID-19 willing, some of those pilot regions. I'm sure one of our members online today can provide some more information about that too. Just a bit about the journey of the Climate Services for Agriculture project so far. We had a first release in June 2021, and as I said, that served up information for all of Australia, but at that stage we were just presenting historical and projected data. We had a next update in December 2022, and that's where we were incorporating and serving up the seasonal outlooks. Lynn will talk more about them. And then we've got our next major release, I guess in a few months' time in June, and we've added some, I think, more commodities, more indices, and giving a general refresh based on user feedback. And at the moment, we're funded until June 2023. So just what you might see if you actually head onto the platform, and the link is given there at the bottom of the slide. this is what you'll see, and just trying to highlight a few features here. So as we said, you know, your feedback is really critical to this project. We want to hear from you, and so you can we've got a link for feedback links, so please feel free to sort of click that and provide us with your feedback. So that's sort of the one thing I wanted to point out. But also noting that we've put together some frequently asked questions, and that was sort of, I guess, based on some of the user feedback we'd already received. So maybe it's probably worth checking out those FAQs first, just to see if we've already answered some of the questions. And so then I guess I'm going to speak about the historical and the future climate. So what one might do is put in a location, and I've got here a location in South Australia, and I'll click the past and future climate tab there, and heading on to now sort of the landing page here. So just to point out, the left-hand column, we've got I guess a location map, and we've got some choices to be made here. The first one is, you'll see commodity, and that's actually a drop-down box. The default is general, so that's where you'll be served up some general climate statistics, so more like, you know, annual and seasonal rainfall, and some basic temperature statistics. You can also drop that down, and we've got some commodities. So depending on the location, you might get wheat or canola or apples or oranges, and that's where we've tried to serve up or provide some indices that are a bit more specific to those commodities. So the information that's provided will change depending on what you select there. You've got time periods, and these time periods are relevant to the projection data. So we've got three what we're calling epochs here, or time periods. So they're 2030, 2050, 2070. And we're presenting two future climate scenarios, and what we're calling medium emissions and then high emissions. And we've got some little descriptors there to help you to understand what those mean. Important, you know exactly what the future is going to hold. You know, there's lots sort of that depends on sort of global decisions and things like that. So it's really important to consider the options, and these are. So these emissions speak to some of the possible options of future climate options. So it's important to think about both of those and see how they might impact your future climate. And so I'll just show you, if I've selected here 2030 and medium emissions, and I'm not sure if you can actually see my my mouse here, but if we go on to the next panel, this climate overview, you'll see. Oops, I think I'm getting some feedback. You'll see that we've got 2030 highlighted and the yellow box for medium emissions. So now I'm getting some information for 2030 and medium emissions. And then if I say select 2050 and high emissions, I've then swapped this. So I've got this sort of red box and the 2050. So what I'll do now is move across to the next panel. Well, sorry, I'll just remain on this middle panel for the moment. You see I've got here seasonal rainfall, and what I've done is there's a blue highlighted panel, that's autumn. So I've actually clicked on that, and that then gives me plots or graphs that are relevant to autumn. And so if I was to select, say, another panel, maybe winter, then I'd get winter plots. So I've now moved on to the third panel here, and I've got historical information in the top right and future in the bottom right. And so the historical, we're presenting it, sort of splitting it into two 30-year periods, just so you can sort of have a look at how your sort of rainfall in this instance might have changed across those two periods. So you can see in this location, looks like there's a bit of a reduction in autumn rainfall, but there's still some really clear variability, but these high and low rainfall years. And I'm just circling here the data source. So we've provided links to the data sources, so you can read up a bit more about that. And in this case, as I said, we're aiming to provide sort of consistent data sets across Australia. And so for the historical, we're using a data set called the Australian Gridded Climate Data Set. And this is based on BOM gauges. So, you know, all the data is underlaid by the BOM gauges, but there's a statistical process applied to allow us to have data for every sort of 5 kilometre grid across Australia, so that you can go into, say, northern South Australia and select information for that location. If we move then to the bottom panel, we've got our future autumn rainfall, and we're presenting these in box plots, and we've got these 2 30-year historical periods, so you can have a look at those, and we've got sort of the mean, and we're also showing, I guess, like the interannual variability, so we've got the 10th and the 90th percentile. And then we show similar statistics in the projected information. We've got both the medium and high emissions shown there. And this data, again, I've circled there, is derived from the Climate Change in Australia project. You might know about that. That's been a long-range project, well scrutinised data sets, and data sets that are designed for applications such as this. And so this information presented here is derived from 8 climate models. We know that, a single climate model just won't do. That's sort of only one view of the future. So it's important to incorporate multi-model information. So that's what we're presenting here. And I guess the idea is, one of the key things here is the ability to sort of show the historical alongside the projected to see how things might be looking into the future. So just moving now, just to show what might happen if you select a different panel, I've just selected, say, the temperature panel, and that's now highlighted in blue. And you can see my, in the right-hand side, the graphs have changed. So I'm now presenting annual heat risk, and that's changed in the historical and the projected panels there. So, and the other thing just to highlight here is I mentioned the commodities. So I've now circled here, I've selected wheat. And so that's changed some of the statistics and the information I'm getting. I'm now getting some indices that are a bit more relevant to wheat. So sort of growing season rainfall, not just general seasonal rainfall. And we're getting some frost risk information as well. And that's then reflected. As you can see, I've selected the growing season, so now my plots reflect the growing season rainfall. That was it for me. So maybe I'll hand over to Lynette, and just if Lynn, let me know when you want me to change the slide.
Thanks, Carly. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So if we go to the next slide, thanks. So I'm just going to be talking to the seasonal forecasting aspect of this. So it was really important. I think the website feels a very important function. Looking back at that past, how has my climate changed, and how is my climate going to change in the future, and actually including those on the same website, which is not something that has been done like this in the past, perhaps. But also looking at seasonal forecasting, how can I manage my climate now? How using seasonal forecasts as a tool for managing that changing climate. So we all know that our climate varies with the drivers that we've had, such as La Nina, that we're currently in a La Nina event, and can mean more rainfall over Australia. And so using some of that information to look at seasonal forecasts, but that location-based seasonal forecast. And we've tried to, so this is Bureau data. This is Bureau seasonal forecast data that you would see on the Bureau website. But we've tried to make it, or present it in a way that might be more useful for your decision making, that you might be able to actually incorporate it a lot easier rather than the above or below median, which is a really good way of getting that bigger picture of what's happening over Australia. But we've tried to make this more agriculturally focused. So if you go to the seasonal forecast part of the website, you can see you could either get to it off that front page, or where that red circle is up the top there, circled on seasonal forecast. You can see that you can go and you'll see this for your location. So you can either look at this coming season or the coming month. And first off, we've got 3 circles there, and we've got what has a 75% chance of happening, so the largest, the highest probability of happening, what has a 50% chance of happening, and what has a low chance of happening. So see, there's a high probability of getting 80 millimeters for the coming season, and that decreases as the totals go up. And that's also in a graph form as well. So a little bit more detail there. You can see the totals, the amount of rainfall going up on the axis there. So you've got a pretty good chance of getting, say, 15 millimeters or so for the coming season, but that chance drops off as you get to those higher totals. And also for your location, you've got what actually is the median rainfall for my location? What do I usually get? And what did I get last season? And also, what has my recent rainfall been? So some of that useful information that might be able to help out in your decision making. And we're looking to based on feedback we've already gotten, and from I know from some of the people on this call, we're looking to include more information around what actually is driving the forecast. So including some of that information, such as, you know, what current state of ENSO that we're in, to just help give a little bit more understanding and perhaps confidence in the forecast. So, and I'll just see that bottom circle there, the bottom red circle, that clicks through to the Bureau webpage. So again, this is all information that you would see on the Bureau website, but in a more location-based format. So if you go to the next slide, please, Carly. And if you, I've done a little bit of a journey there, because that actually, that clicking on that link takes you to about the outlooks. So if you want to get to the, if you want to get to it, which is actually interesting information, but if you want to get to the actual outlook, you can click on one of where those red circles are. That'll get you to this page here. And you click again on the red circle, then you finally get to the outlook. So you get a bit of a summary. You get the latest video, which is, I think, a nice way of condensing the message. And you can either click on rainfall or temperature to get to more information. And clicking on rainfall gets you to a map like that, where we have a number of time steps from 1 week to 2 weeks. And again, please give us this feedback. If you want some of those shorter time steps in the CSA platform, if you want that in between, or not just that month and seasonal, please feedback that back to us. So going to the next slide, please, Carly. So if you actually go to the seasonal, so if you go, well, move that little ribbon from 1 week to 1 month or 3 months, you'll actually get that map that you're more used to seeing, that above chances of getting above or below median. So it's sort of hidden there by the pop-up, but there's increased chances at this stage. There was increased chances of above median rainfall across much of Australia, which we've certainly seen in the east. If you actually click on your location, you'll get a little bit more information for your site. So you'll actually get the chances of getting in each 20% bin. So the chances of getting in each 20% bin are 20%, but is it going to be increased or decreased chances of getting in the wettest or driest 20%? And you can actually click on that on the side with that chance of extremes. So that top figure there with the arrow coming out. So that shows you that there's increased chance over parts of Australia at this stage for getting rainfall in the top 20%. So this is one of the, which some of you may have heard of, one of the products coming out from the Forewarned is for Armed project, and we will be having more of those coming out. And again, the Climate Services for Agriculture project has been making a contribution to this, and does have all of these that are actually out at the moment, has it available to the platform. But we don't want to just throw everything on the platform. We want to make it sure that it's actually what what you want to see, what people want to see, so they can make their decisions. And we don't want it to be, I know, so much information that you can't work out what's going on. So so really trying to really listen to your feedback as to what goes on to the platform. And you can also look at the other one there is important, and I didn't touch on as much, but the past accuracy, where we give an indication of how well at this time of the year in your location, how well it has performed in the past, the forecast. Next slide, please, Carly. And so what's driving the outlook? You can also click on the site. I see my colleagues putting some links in there. So just looking at the, we can go to the climate driver update. You can actually sign up. There's a little subscribe button up there in the right-hand corner next to the little calendar. I don't know if you can move your mouse for me, Carly, and go to where that subscribe button is up in the top right-hand side there above the, yep, up there. You can, so you can get that delivered to your inbox, your mailbox every 2 weeks, or we put it out every on Tuesdays every 2 weeks. But that gives you a bit of an indication of what drivers are happening in the climate, or what might be influencing the climate at the moment. Next slide, please, Carly. And we do have a lot of drivers that do influence our climate in Australia, as you all know. We also, new to the Bureau site, we also have forecasts of hydrological variables, or so we have soil moisture, we have runoff, and we have evapotranspiration at that seasonal scale. And the website is there, but again, one of my colleagues might put it in the chat, or I'll put it in the chat after I finish here. And so that's one way of also getting a bit of an idea of what has happened with soil moisture in the past and what is going to happen on that seasonal level. And again, if this is something that you're interested in for climate services for agriculture, again, please give us that feedback, because and that will we'll begin that process of getting that information onto our website. So next slide, please, Carly. This is just the current outlook. It won't be out till 3 o'clock today, so please don't take any photos of this or repost, because you're getting the first look at it. So it's really not well, I shouldn't say not any surprises, but we are seeing that wet signal continuing. So we've been seeing that signal with the La Nina and the other drivers towards wetter conditions in recent months, and really seeing that signal for increased chances of wetter than median conditions rainfall across largely eastern and northern Australia, where the La Nina has that impact at this time of year. So looking ahead for April, and for April to June, there's increased chances of wetter than median conditions across large parts of eastern and northern parts of Australia. Thanks, Carly. Next slide. And just looking ahead to El Nino Southern Oscillation. So usually a 1 year cycle usually starts in about winter, spring, and then continues, and we see it decline in autumn of the following year. And we are seeing the models predicting that seasonal cycle will continue, with the models backing off. We can see around April, many of the models that we survey have backed off from putting their columns in the blue, so that blue being the La Nina levels. And by May, there's only a couple of models that are persisting that La Nina event. So we are in the second La Nina event in 2 years. So we followed one La Nina event of 2020 to 2021, but it is looking like it's going to decay, and none of the models at this stage are forecasting that the La Nina is going to continue. Well, I suppose one model is going out on a limb there, but that's a bit unusual. So the consensus is that the La Nina is going to finish in autumn as per the seasonal cycle, and there's no indications that it's going to reinvigorate at this stage. So I think that's it. So next slide, please, Carly. So just in summary, as we've discussed, really climate services for agriculture, really looking to bring together some information to begin to start answering some of those questions. How is my climate changing? How will it change in the future? And providing some of those tools to help manage that climate variability. And please do tell us your experience. And again, importantly, as we did say, it is supported by data and science from the Bureau of Meteorology and CSIRO. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Lynette and Carly. That looks like a very clear and well presented program. I'm quite impressed. I've got a few questions, but I've got one just to kick it off with. I really like the way the first part where you went into your past and future comparisons, but I'm just wondering, is there a switch there where you switch and put in the temperature outlooks as well? Because you know, a slightly dry year in a cold year is not going to be as bad as a slightly wet year in a cold year is not going to be as bad as a slightly wet year in a hot year. So, you know, we're finding growing wheat that the temperature is pretty important, especially through winter, because the crops move at different rates.
So sorry, Peter, are you talking about the future climate scenarios?
Back when you were at the first couple of slides, you had, I think I can get back to there, your seasonal forecast, I think, and you had the water, about the rainfall balance and all that sort of thing. Yeah, there.
Oh,
Is there another bit that goes with that, which would put the same thing for the temperatures?
No,
Yeah.
but not at this stage. But again, like temperature would be because you know it's already established on the Bureau website. So that's something, if you're giving us this feedback, that we can take and look to incorporate into the website. So yes,
It's just that
yeah,
it is on the website. I realise that,
yeah,
and it's all
but
there.
no, yeah,
It's just that this
but
is laid out so easily for farmers to read, and I find the interaction between temperature and rainfall is becoming more critical. I'm just wondering whether this was in it or not. I just couldn't see it or not.
No, but definitely that's something that that we've spoken about including. And so again, yes, this feedback will be taking back and saying, you know, Peter has told us that that temperature would be good to include. So definitely, yeah, we'll be looking into that.
I don't like to make your life any harder than they already are, but it is good work at the moment. All right, I'll ask some other questions. I have a question from Bonnie Martin Stewart. Just to confirm, the BOM data is modelled on your nearest weather station recordings. I'm in the Snowy Mountains and weather can be very localised due to the mountains and forecasts.
Yes, so that's a really good question. So at the moment, the way it is set up, we use the gridded climate data set. So we put a lot of effort into, and part of this project, we're actually improving the analysis of that gridded climate data set. So it's providing that consistent coverage across Australia, even, you know, in locations that that might not have a really good coverage of weather stations. But so it does take all that weather station data into it and ingests it and then puts it on a 5-kilometre grid. But, you know, I do take your point, and that's, I suppose, something that, you know, that you have to consider when you are looking at this, that it might not be the same as your local station, but over time. So the gridded one, good thing about the gridded data set too, though we don't show it here, but it's something that people have told us we can go back to 1900 for the rainfall data set. And again, that sort of consistent method and way over time. And you can actually look at some of those longer term changes over time. And so as stations drop in and out of the network, that gridded data set, incorporates all stations in the network at that point in time, but gives you that consistency over time.
Excellent. I have another question, or sort of a question. It's a bit of a comment like my question was, from Andrew Robertson. And it says, thanks, farmers need to link the BOM data with farm soil moisture and other soil data measurements. So I guess he's sort of asking about that, even though that data was in the subsoil soil measurements as well, whether that's going to be incorporated into this program.
Yeah, so again, I think as I wrote to, replied to the question of someone else, yes, we do have that available to us. I think on the wheat or some of the grain crops, if you choose that commodity, you can see April soil moisture, but certainly, again, if people are telling us that is something they would like to see in the more general picture of what is occurring, we can getting that feedback, we can look at that like we do for rainfall and temperature, because we are getting that feedback that that the soil moisture is important. It is that modelled soil moisture from the Aura model, and I think my colleague has put a link. My colleague Andrew has put a link to it in the chat. So go have a look at that link. That's new out, and it'll be at the end of this month, I think, or very soon anyway. You should be they'll be putting out information on the projections for each region too, so that's something to keep an eye out. So we are working very closely with them to incorporate that information into the website. But yes, you're putting up hands for people telling us they want this, expedites that process.
Very good. Now, next question is from Pamela Shen. Do you have any idea when the next El Nino event is likely to occur?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? Yeah. So I know. I suppose the easy answer. So there's no indications of it this stage, but this is the it's one of the times where there's a lot of variability in the system. So so keep watching, maybe subscribe to that climate driver update, and that's where you'll see it first, or the ENSO outlook. And we really do that's something, it is important to Australia, so that's something that we keep a really close eye on to see how that's developing. So we will be we're constantly monitoring it. So I'll say not at this stage, but yes, keep watching. And as we get into, I know it's hard because you want that information now when you're sort of starting to do some of that that planning for the season, but unfortunately it's not something that we can see at this stage, but it is something we do closely monitor.
It's pretty good information.
Yeah. I will say, sorry, I'll just jump in there again, that the models that we use to do the climate outlooks, they're dynamical models, so they include everything in the outlook. They include ENSO, but they actually include it, in the way, what the atmosphere is doing, what the sea surface temperatures are doing. So they include the Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean, the Southern Ocean. So they include all of those intrinsically in the physics of that model to make that forecast. So yeah, so keep an eye on that, but also keep an eye on what the model is saying as well.
Very good, and thanks, Lynn. And from my personal point of view, trying to work out how good the wheat crop or the canola crop's going to be, it looks like it's going to be fairly reasonable till the end of winter. Anyway, from your current outlooks, which will probably see us with the current soil moistures get through this year. So looks like we've got a half decent year coming up. We'll worry about what happens after that. Now we're going to put a poll up for people to answer a few questions, which I believe will be up now. I don't have any other further questions. If anybody would like to post any, I'm happy to happy to ask them. But I'd like to thank our two speakers, Carly and Lynette, for giving a very clear and concise and open and sort of free and frank discussion. The Bureau is always, from where I sit, under a lot of pressure for forecasting, which is never easy. So thank you for your efforts. And I think, again, from where I sit and from Farmers for Climate Action, we greatly appreciate working with you. I think many farmers are starting to learn how to use the tools that you're putting out, and it's making, I wouldn't say the job a lot easier, but it's taking a little bit of the stress out of the process. So the poll should be open. I'm just not sure how that works. Do you have any closing remarks, Carly or Lynn?
Just thank you for having me today, and apologies for my computer issues at the start. And I guess, yeah, just please engage with us, test out the platform, see what you like and what you don't like, and get in touch with us. Let us know what you think. All
right, and this recording of this webinar will be up on the Farmers for Climate Action site later, probably tomorrow. So anybody that wants to go back and check something can do that. And I'm not sure if Claire's there. I'm not seeing any poll.
Well, the poll has been launched, so if you can't see it, I'm
not seeing it.
Has anyone got it down the bottom of the icons?
That's where it should be, but I'm not seeing it there. So not to worry, you may not get a poll, but if you have any questions, you can either send them to Lynn or Carly, I guess, or probably easier if you don't have their address, send them to us at FCA and we'll pass them on. So thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.